Gripping his shield firmly in one hand and his spear in the other, Ptolemus, a Greek hoplite in Alexander the Great's army, cautiously made his way up the steep embankment of a mountainside, steadily inching his way closer to a massive, ominous cave. Peering over his shoulder, Ptolemus saw his guides, locals from the nearby mountain villages, watching him with bated breath, some of them nervous, others afraid. They had told him not to come up here. They had warned him of the dangers. They had warned him about the dragon. Turning his attention back to the cave, Ptolemus steadied his nerves. He reminded himself of the countless challenges he'd faced down before. He had marched to the ends of the known world, fought in over a dozen battles, suffered and survived wounds, hardships, hunger, and thirst. Ptolemus was no coward. Forcing one foot in front of the other, he soon drew near enough to the mouth of the cave to smell the foul, sour smell of the beast inside. The stink of rotting flesh and reptilian waste emanated from the cave. A few steps closer and Ptolemus could see forgotten offerings and old sacrifices that lay scattered around the mouth of the cave, gifts from the locals to the beast they worshipped as a god. As the hoplite drew closer to the cave, a hissing roar echoed from within the beast's lair. It was said that the dragon was possessed of the keenest senses. There was almost no way to pass by its lair without disturbing it. Unable to bring himself any closer to the mouth of the cave, Ptolemus stood where he was and tried to control his shaking legs. Inside the cave, the dragon stirred and hissed once more. Judging by the sound alone, Ptolemus knew the beast was enormous. The extended exhale of its hiss told of giant lungs, and an unsettling dragging noise indicated a huge swishing tail. The beast, the dragon, was awake. Fighting his nerves with every breath, the hoplite forced himself to stand bravely. It took every ounce of his willpower simply to hold on to his shield and weapon. For all he knew, he was about to come face to face with a god. A moment later, the beast showed itself. A massive reptilian monster emerged from the cave, hissing angrily. Its head was massive, with eyes the size of shields and teeth-filled jaws that could swallow a man whole. Scales covered the beast's body like a suit of armor, from its fearsome face to its swishing tail. Snapping its jaws, the dragon spotted Ptolemus and turned toward him with a terrible speed. Reacting as quickly as he could, the hoplite dropped his spear and his shield, and he ran down the mountainside the way he had come, outrunning even the locals who had guided him to the cave. This is the story of Alexander the Great and the dragon. This is the retelling. The story you just heard is a fictionalized one. There is no account of Ptolemus, no song or poem or inscription of Ptolemus. But the story of the dragon he encountered is not so fictional. By the year 327 BC, Alexander the Great's world-conquering tour had reached India, and it was there, in the mountainous region around a settlement called Nysa, that the Macedonian conqueror and his army would have first heard the story of the dragon. The locals of the area, who claimed to be descendants of the god Dionysus, were welcoming to Alexander and his men. They gave them wine and showed them their grove of Dionysus, where the Macedonians sang hymns and gave thanks to the god of wine. But there was something else the locals spoke of, something that gave Alexander and his men a moment's pause. According to the locals, a massive and temperamental beast, a dragon, lived not far away in a mountain cave. Fearsome and terrible, the locals feared and respected the dragon, apparently worshipping the creature as a deity. India was, to Alexander and his Greeks, the very edge of the world. It was an unknown land of wonders and mysteries, where beasts and monsters still roamed, and where mountain tribes could trace their lineage back to the gods themselves. For the Greeks, India was a land of extremes. It was a land of tall mountains and low valleys, dry deserts and wet forests. It was a land of unknown plants and abundant greenery, a place of scorching heat and monsoon rains. It was a land of strange animals, deadly tigers, giant snakes, and of course, elephants. In short, to the Greeks, India was a land of strange and wonderful things. It was a land where dragons could be found. The story goes that Alexander was warned about the dragon by locals who asked him not to harm or disturb the beast as they worshipped it as a god. Alexander agreed. When it came time for the Macedonian king and his army to move on from the mountains, however, it became clear that the army would be passing by the beast's lair on their way. Armies are noisy, even ones that are trying to sneak past dragons. As Alexander the Great's army descended the mountain, the clamor of their march disturbed the dragon, and the beast emerged from its cave to hiss at the army as it passed by. Fortunately for the Greeks, the monster, which apparently measured nearly 100 feet in length, and again had eyes the size of shields, only poked its head out of the cave. Maybe it was tired that day, or maybe it knew better than to challenge Alexander. So is there any truth to this tale? Not really. Sources for this encounter, such as they are not considered very credible. While it is entirely possible that Alexander and his army did encounter a monster living in the cave, the beast was most likely nothing more than an abnormally large crocodile. The ancient writer Arrian chronicles how, when Alexander first arrived in India, he summoned local chieftains and kings of the area to come to him and submit to his rule. When these rulers came to Alexander, they brought gifts, some of which were the skins of very large lizards. One of Alexander's own courtiers, Oniscritus, told of an Indian king who kept massive serpents over 100 feet in length. That being said, Oniscritus is one of the sketchier sources. While these accounts may sound impressive, at no point do writers refer to dragons. A large lizard's skin, or captive serpent, does not a dragon make. The story of Alexander and the dragon was exaggerated and expanded upon throughout the years, developing features and details that would go on to inform bestiaries for centuries to come. Pliny the Elder, for example, writing in the 1st century AD, says, "The lizards of Arabia are a cubit in length, while those upon Nysa, a mountain of India, are 24 feet long, their color being either yellow, purple, or azure blue." So, while Alexander didn't come face to face with a dragon, he almost certainly did come face to face with a few crocodiles, and perhaps even a few giant snakes. Alexander the Great's story is a story so great, so unique, and so unbelievable that it doesn't need the addition of dragons. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. I know it was a little shorter than usual, but this has always been a story that's captivated me and one I wanted to cover. Alexander the Great is probably my favorite historical figure of all time, and I've always been intrigued by this story of the dragon in India. Anyways, thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.